Uh, so, dear students, thank you for your time. Today, our guest is Meirambek Idrissov. So, this is the second series of Fintalks series. Meirambek Idrissov is an Nazarbayev University alumni. He graduated from MIT Sloan School of Management, Master in Finance. He has an experience working as an investments intern at Oppenheimer Funds and as a research analyst also. He's now working as a research analyst as Invesco company. So he will share how he have used his education at NU to shape and direct his career, and they will give tips and tricks to our students so we can continue this session in the language that you are comfortable with. So let's start. Stage is yours.
Thanks so much, Ariel. I'm very happy to meet everybody, and thanks for joining on a very short notice. I think we have a full hour, but we don't have to make it a full hour, and we can talk about as many things as you want. I always love connecting with students and, giving back to my alma mater. I really love Nazarbayev University. I love the people there, the professors, all the students, and everybody who is in any way connected to the university. People are amazing, and that's definitely one of the reasons why I always do these things, not only with the Ministry of Finance, but all other organizations in the university. I think what's going to make sense for us, and I want to make it as actually interactive as possible. So we do have a couple of people who joined live, and I think if you're recording this, I'm sure I'll get more follow-up questions. I'll be happy to touch upon those as well. What I recommend we do is I can go through my background, what I did, let's say, basically starting from my high school, and then maybe going, directly into undergrad, and how my life sort of changed after that. We can also touch on any other topics you guys want. So I'm happy to talk about the life in the US, career in finance, any kind of questions around that, any questions about Wall Street, firms that, make up the chunk of the capital in the US these days. I work at Invesco. We manage about $1.5 trillion in total. My team manages about $100 billion. And the team is growing a lot. So we have a really good grasp of the markets and of any type of investment solution that any investor can think about. So I'm happy to talk about that. I also got quite a lot of questions about, how to start investing, what to do about that. What do you think about markets? What do you think about crypto? What do you think about economy and, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine? What should I do with my money? All those types of questions being bombarded these days. I actually came to Kazakhstan, so I'm here for probably 2 weeks. My schedule is going to be very tight, but I wanted also to see if I can come on campus probably in about 10 days and meet a couple students, just to visit the campus and see how life is there. So happy to answer any questions and, talk about anything you want. But let's maybe, I also want to give maybe a couple pieces of advice at the end that I think it will be a little bit different from what you hear from other people, just because my experience is mostly in the US, and I see how companies and how successful people in the US may, build a good career or build a good relationship and build their network, which I think will be helpful for you as well. But let's, like I said in the beginning, let's go through my background. In high school, I went to school number 3 in Karaganda. It's technically a gymnasium, but really not. I was studying English by myself since I was 10 years old. And because my school actually was, very, very keen on making students learn French for some reason. So I had to study English by myself. I grew up in a simple family, so I had to sort of always win all the battles, prove to everybody that I can and that I'm capable of a lot of things. I got into Nazarbayev University after my graduation from high school. So that was a really big transition in my life that helped me a lot and helped me gain a lot of skills and critical thinking abilities and the ability to comprehend material and apply the knowledge that I get from different types of sources. So I think that's one of the really, really good skills that Nazarbayev University teaches really well. I was majoring in economics and minoring in math, but I made that decision actually in my third year. In my first and second year, I was thinking about majoring in political science and international relations, and I was actually pretty good at it. But when I went to do a summer program in Hong Kong in 2015, that was in summer, I really liked, the world of finance in Hong Kong, and I met a lot of people from the industry there. And I just really decided that, that's where I would love to go. So I changed my major after coming back. That was probably like September 2015, my third year. Yeah, I had to work really, really hard to get that major changed, but I eventually declared economics and minor into math. I had to take a lot of hard and difficult courses. I was interning in a few places at the same time as studying. And it was very difficult to combine all of those things together. I'm sure that a lot of our students are doing the same thing or are trying to come up with good entrepreneurial type of business type of projects on campus. You guys have a much better support these days from both the university and other sources. Recently you guys launched the student fund, which is really amazing. I think that's where all the leading universities are trying to develop their students' financial acumen and investment acumen. So that's really good. I tried to do that too. Mine was not super big and super official as you guys are trying to build it, which is really great. All of those efforts will always be appreciated. So after graduating from Nazarbayev University, in about I graduated in May 2017, and then in June I went to US to do my Master of Finance degree. It was not easy because coming with basically economics and my math major, going into a program that is very quantitative in nature and also has a lot of people who come from the industry and have a lot of interesting background, have a lot of understanding financial markets, was very, very challenging. The program was actually very difficult because I had to combine sort of my studies with a lot of networking and understanding how different industries in the US work. And what MIT Sloan does really well is they invite a lot of speakers and a lot of guest lecturers who teach you about different industries and who teach you about different companies. They do on-site interviews. They do different kind of trips. So we went to New York a couple of times to do company visits. We worked on a few projects with very big banks, both in New York and in Boston throughout throughout the curriculum, throughout my 1.5 years, which was really amazing and helped me understand a lot about the industry, which I think a lot of people don't quite understand about business schools, right? When you choose business school, you choose your network and you choose the prestige and you choose the companies that know about the school. So you really don't choose your program by the strength of the curriculum or the strength of let's say the variety of courses. A lot of courses that are taught in business schools these days can be accessed online, or they can be sort of studied on your own, which is not actually difficult. And I think what really is important for a lot of students who are trying to get into Master of Finance programs is the prestige of the school and how receptive the industry is of that school. So I think that's one thing I really wanted the students and you to understand. A lot of times I get questions like, can you look at this curriculum of this program or that program? Do you think this course variety is better? It's really not about that. It's really about the prestige of the school and the access of the school to different sources in the industry. So that's very important to understand. What was cool about Sloan, though, and I think I want to share this with you guys, is that they had a cross curriculum between Sloan and between MIT and Harvard. So I took a bunch of courses at Harvard. I almost like half graduated there. I took the private equity course and a lot of other courses. I attended their courses in Canada, Harvard Canada School. I even took a few classes with undergrads in Harvard College and a couple of PhD seminars there, but it was not easy. I must say, I also took some courses on MIT campus, artificial intelligence, for example, and astronomy. Was cool that we went on a few trips and kind of did some stargazing at night, watching different planets. That was really cool. So I think when you choose business school, I'm not telling you to boast about Sloan, but just to tell you that that's what you should really look at, sort of the variety, not the variety of courses, but the access to different sources and how well integrated the curriculum is with the industry. Like, just make sure that it's not too heavily quant oriented, because you will have trouble connecting the dots. A lot of people at NU have very great research base, but then when they go into the industry, they don't understand how it works. You should bridge that gap yourself, or if you go to business school, make sure you choose the one that can help you bridge that gap, and where there's a strong curriculum with career center trainings. Between my first and second year at business school, I did an internship in New York at Oppenheimer Funds. I was in their multi-asset group, and I got exposure to investing directly. So I was actually touching all the portfolios on a day-to-day basis as an intern, and I was helping the senior portfolio manager to construct different portfolios and come up with capital markets assumptions, about the views on economies, the views on different types of markets and different environments. They really liked my output. I had presented my research project to the most senior people in the whole firm. Even the CEO was there when I was presenting. So that was not easy. So they extended a full-time offer for me then. After completion, I went back to Sloan for my fall semester, and I started working full-time there in March 2019. So that's when my full-time job started. Then after about 2 months, maybe end of May, Oppenheimer Funds was bought out. There was a merger with Invesco Group Services, where I work right now. Invesco is a really big firm, like I said in the beginning, managing $1.5 trillion. We rolled into their investment solutions group as part of that merger. It was a really interesting transition, because, now coming from a small firm and going to really big, you get exposure to a lot of sources and a lot of people who've been in the industry for so long, with a lot of brand. So like, you don't have to tell anybody about your company. Everybody knows who Invesco are in the US and globally as well. And that's the benefit of the firm. A lot of my advice, unfortunately, is going to be applicable mostly to people in the US. But I think the other advice I'll give is, when you start your job, make sure that you choose the team and the boss, and you never negotiate salary too much. I know it's a little bit hard for Kazakhstan, just because salaries are really low here. So you really do care about that. But what you should really care about is how much that team and the boss are going to invest in you, how much they're going to develop your skill set and develop your ability to grow. Not everybody, if you're a hard worker and you work day and night, that may not get you a promotion or may not get you, up in your career ladder. What will get you up is your ability to be nimble. You have to be very flexible, and you have to adapt to changes and to crisis very quickly. When I already interviewed some of my teammates. Our team has been growing, and I've been interviewing probably, I don't know, dozens of candidates over the past few months. And the one common trait I find in all of our rejections, like whenever my team or me don't like the candidate, even though he seems to be strong and hardworking, is that they're not flexible or not nimble. They're not able to adapt to quick changes. And it's one of the skills you will need not only in your workplace, but also in your life. Just think about how fragile our lives are and how quickly things change. If you're able to adapt like a spring, so you fall and then you come back real quick, and you take on even more challenges and even more grow even more rapidly, then that's what's going to make you outstanding. So when I interview candidates, I always ask them about, would you describe yourself as being nimble and able to work under pressure and under stress? Because life is about changes, right? And history is about abrupt changes that are consequential. So if you think about those qualities and start developing them in yourself, then you will be very successful. And I'm saying that because when we go to NU, they already pre-screen us for being hard workers, pretty much. It's not always ideal, but they already pre-screen us for being hard workers and for being having high intellectual capacity, right? So nobody's going to doubt that. What they will doubt is how easily you can connect the dots and integrate sources of information, and then how willing are you to go beyond what you're asked to do. What a successful student and successful professional, especially in young, in your first years, is going to be is someone who is willing and also able to go beyond what they're being asked to do, when they can show that they have a lot of passion for what they do, and they really care about the output. So I think that's going to be another thing that I wanted to relate to everybody. When I work full time, so since 2019 in March, so that's probably already 3 years. I've grown in my role quickly, and I've noticed how my responsibilities shift. So to take on even more work challenges, it's not easy, right? You have to be brave because you have to be able to learn a lot of things by yourself. And to do that, you really have to have that skill to be a self-starter and to be ambitious about your goals that you set. So I don't want to speak too much about myself again, and I'm happy to tell more about my role, or to tell more about actual projects that we do, any kind of challenges. But I'm curious to see what you guys are interested in. I've seen probably 5 or more questions here.
Yes,
Let's say maybe,
question.
yeah. What's the best way to go about this? Arlen, do you want me to pick one by one, or do you want me to pick only a few?
Yeah, I can read the question if it's comfortable. Okay, Adil, you can ask.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I mean, thank you for your words. So all we know, we all know that getting master's degree is one of the ways to get into Wall Street. Yes, to get into a nice career in finance. And could you please describe maybe another ways to get into high-ranked investment firm worldwide?
Okay, so that's a great question. I'll speak mostly about my firm, but I can also, you can probably generalize that. One of the ways is to work for a branch that's not in the US right now. So if you work for a very big firm, it doesn't have to be in asset management. It can be Big Four or consulting. And if there is a transfer program, or if there is a subsidiary that can hire you in the US, that's one option. Another option is just to temporarily get on some projects that are in the US. The best way is definitely, it's the easiest probably with those firms who are flexible about that. Just keep in mind that this being a subsidiary is not the same as being the firm. So there will be differences, but definitely the easiest way is to go through the master's program. Now you will probably have to give up Bolashak financing, just because it's going to be very hard for you to come back to Kazakhstan and then find a full-time job in the US after that, unless you do have an internship and have an offer that can be deferred, which not a lot of companies do. And then I saw, oh, do you have another question?
No. There's no question.
I was just gonna say, I saw, I think, what do you suggest to do outside of a new economics syllabus? Okay, it seems to be an economics major, taking some extra credits, reading books, something else. It's a bit vague to me. It depends on, yes, what you want to achieve, right? It depends on your goal. If you want to learn, coding languages, do that. But it depends on, again, what you want to do with that coding language. If you want to use it as me on an everyday basis, just to do some basic analytics of markets, some basic market analysis, some basic regressions, and some basic data analysis, you don't have to go very deep into that. But if you want to become a quant, let's say a developer in a hedge fund or something like that, then you definitely want to get more into statistics and more sort of heavily AI, machine learning oriented things like Keras and Python maybe, or any kind of machine learning packages. If the question is more about how to understand markets, the syllabus, it's not only about NU and it's not only about economics. The syllabus are always standard. Like you won't ever get exposure to a lot of industry through the syllabus, right? Because you're learning about theory and you're trying to learn the fundamentals. But what you should do is you should try to think about how that applies in the world. And just take the Ukrainian crisis, or take any kind of other economic shock, or just generally, just even what's going on with inflation. Try to think about what you learned in economics class about inflation or about macro is how much of that applies to the world right now. And if it doesn't apply, or if it goes against what you learned in class, ask yourself why. And then if you can't find an answer, ask the professor, or read a book, or read an article, right? What I'm telling you is that there is syllabus, that's fundamentals, but what you should do is try to connect the dots and think about the industry and the markets and how all that applies. And then thirdly, I would say, if you're asking me what do you suggest to do to learn more about investing, I would say just start investing. Open a brokerage account, invest a couple. You don't have to do a full share right now. You can always do fractional share. I think right now it may not be possible for Kazakhstan citizens, though. It was possible a couple of months ago, but fractional share is when you don't have to invest all of your money and buy a full share. You can just buy a portion of Tesla, for example, just because it's expensive. Although I probably wouldn't buy it now. But I think those are the things. Нурила, переломный момент в вашей карьере. Моя карьера 3 года full-time. Переломный — это, наверное, acquisition, про который я говорил, когда в мае, то есть я начал работать, можно сказать, в марте 2019 года. Я отвечу на русском, потому что вопрос был задан на русском. В марте 2019 года я начал работать full-time, да, в компании, где я стажировался до этого летом. Команда была та же, тот же начальник, те же процессы, и просто нам потом говорят, что нас покупают через 2 месяца, да, то есть это говорит о том, что поменяется все, моя команда, возможно, начальник, все reporting lines, абсолютно все, в общем, это будет абсолютно другая компания, да, ровно через 2 месяца, а ты только начал работать, только пытаешься вникнуть, и это говорит о том, что тебя выкупают в вашу компанию, тебе нужно доказать, что ты стоишь того, чтобы тебя не уволили, потому что когда происходят такие изменения в компании, увольняют большинство стаффа. И чтобы доказать новым директорам, board of directors и CEO, и всем остальным, всему менеджменту, что тебя увольнять не надо, это очень тяжело в начале карьеры. Они проводили интервью 1 на 1 с каждым членом нашей команды. И это было действительно очень тяжело. И то есть переломный момент, потому что абсолютно все поменялось в мае, и нужно было, в общем, пахать и доказывать, что like you're really worth it. Но опять же, я просто хочу, чтобы вы извлекали из всего этого какие-то уроки, да, чтобы я не хочу просто как-то хвастаться или говорить про себя. Моя цель — это научить и передать огромное количество знаний вам. Это невозможно сделать за час разговора, но по максимальному какие-то советы передать. Это что вот, опять же, гибкость нужна и в такой ситуации, и вообще в любой ситуации, в карьере и в жизни, потому что таких изменений у меня, наверное, за 3 года было, не знаю, минимум 10 раз, когда абсолютно все менялось, включая все визовые законы, и сколько мне нужно было переезжать из города в город и менять абсолютно все свое окружение, да, за считанные дни. Просто много таких моментов было. И поэтому такая вот гибкость. И причем гибкость такая нужна, что вы просто упали, встали дальше и делаете еще больше, и доказываете, и показываете больше результатов. Как нынешняя ситуация? Это хороший вопрос, на который у меня нет ответа, да, потому что никто не знает. Или как вы думаете даже, да? Я вообще на самом деле насчет этого не думал, потому что ситуация еще на самом деле не до конца разрешилась, и даже когда она официально разрешится, там последствия еще. Но это хороший вопрос, потому что я люблю, когда студенты думают не только про Америку, а вообще про все страны. У вас есть, вы просто такие очень молодые, заряженные, высокой энергией, и можно выбрать любую страну. Сингапур, Гонконг, очень классные страны. У меня там много друзей учатся, и знакомых тоже, и тоже ребята есть. Дубай очень классно. Многие любят Европу, там очень много, Европа более лояльна относится к сколоршипам, ко всяким. Если вы там в одной стране Европы, вы можете по всей стране там колесить, да, и на каких-то программах участвовать. В Америке это сложновато. В Америке все визовые процессы всегда более сложными, и они с каждым годом становятся сложнее. Или, по крайней мере, может так казаться мне. Но да, за этой ситуацией нужно следить. Пока Америка ничего не выражала, какие-то там намерения, да, ввести санкции на студенческие визы, или, по крайней мере, я не слышал о таком. Но если услышу, я, конечно, поделюсь такой информацией. Марила, самый полезный курс в университете, который вы брали, было их несколько. И не могу сказать, что какой-то самый прям полезный был, потому что в каждом курсе есть моменты, которые ты так как-то должен пропустить, да, понять их, но не применишь. Мне очень сильно понравилась вторая эконометрика. Я не знаю, кстати, от чего это зависит, потому что, наверное, большинству моего класса она очень сильно не понравилась. Но мне понравилось в том, что там действительно можно было применить все навыки в статистике и экономические навыки, и мыслить, и просто на любом проекте их применить и сделать что-то своими руками и показать и презентовать это еще. То есть это такой курс, где soft skills развивались, analytical skills, reading skills, то есть все вместе. Многие к нему как-то неправильно подошли, там проект в последнюю секунду делали или еще что-то, и очень сложно было закрывать этот курс, я понимаю. Но мне он очень понравился, и я даже потом советовал, что все студенты, я, конечно, так не делаю, не успел сделать, но даже если вы не берете вторую эконометрику, вы можете всегда такие проекты делать на стороне или для себя, или с друзьями, или с профессорами. Когда мы учились, это немножко сложновато было, но сейчас я слышал, что профессора делают проекты с студентами тоже активно. All right, Dania, because BA is a core foundation of your education, it's better to take more applicable major like engineering economics rather than linguistics or literature and take those as masters. That's an individual question. It really depends on what you want to do with your masters, because a lot of people actually do the reverse. But I would say if you do about finance, right? If you look at Master of Finance class, for example, just at MIT Sloan, you will see that there are some students who had a literatures or psychology major, surprisingly, and a lot of the largest chunk would be economics or engineering, like Danielle said, and then they'll do Master of Finance to get into the industry with that. Here it's a little bit tricky. It depends on what you like and what you don't. The advice I really want to give is, and it's hard to say that because you will think, oh, like everybody says that, but it's especially true in the US. You should really love what you do and you should love what you learn because life is short, right? You should maximize your utility from your education and from your work. If there's something you don't, and it will never be ideal. There will always be some moments you don't like or you don't find useful, but you should, again, be flexible about that and just maybe spend less time on that. But you should always love. And the other difficulty is that you don't know what you love, right? And neither did I. And that's normal. It's always normal to look sort of for your passion, for your love. You're choosing a major is choosing a partner, right? And choosing a career is just choosing a partner. So bad analogy, but it's all I'm saying is that you really have to be careful about that and you have to be comfortable with that. But to give a more directed answer, I think that's right. I think it's generally true that a good applicable major is going to help you better than linguistics or literature. It's also because, like, what are you going to do if you do linguistics or literature as your major? You probably want to go into that field. You want to stay there. It's a little bit difficult to change after that, but it's not impossible. I see a lot of people who changed their careers. I know a ballet dancer from Moscow, I think, who got into finance and then technology and is really successful at Google. So like a completely creative major that completely shifted her career. Those success stories are more for US, but they do happen and I think they're real. But I said in the beginning, it's a very individualistic question. If you have more questions about that, then yeah, you're welcome to reach out. Были ли запоминающиеся эпизоды в университете? Их было очень много. И в НУ, и в Слоуне. Просто хочу начать с того, что больше всего мне в НУ запомнилась passion в глазах студентов. Особенно мы были третьим потоком, то есть университет был относительно новый, у нас было очень много фандинга, но не было как бы инфраструктуры, да, то есть студенты сами все строили тогда. Была очень огромная поддержка со всех сторон, с DSA, со стороны профессоров, все были за любую идею, это было очень нелегко. Я очень сильно был занят учебой, к сожалению, но у меня было много знакомых друзей, которые сами своими руками лепили студенческие клубы, инфраструктуру, разные ивенты, и это было очень круто. Наверное, это не эпизод, это больше как качество, да, университета, которое запомнилось. В MIT вообще в целом запомнилось то, что там любят инновации, там находится в Бостоне, там постоянно открываются financial technology companies. Ну, кстати, я вижу сейчас, что и ВНУ такое появилось очень активно. Вообще в целом в Казахстане очень большая поддержка финтека идет. Вообще в целом я хотел сказать, я сейчас скажу это, пока не забыл, потому что я вчера думал, какой совет хочу больше всего вам передать. Это что как бы очень важно, да, сейчас не потратить все свое, скажем, все свои молодые годы, все свое студенчество на учебу. В какие-то моменты это была моя ошибка, когда я прям очень сильно вдавался в учебу, и если она не получается на то, что ты надеялся, ты очень сильно расстраиваешься, и идеально никогда не будет. Поэтому нужно находить баланс. И потом, когда вы научитесь развивать в себе этот баланс, это очень нелегко сделать. Это очень нелегко. Вы потом эту привычку в себе привьете, да, и потом, когда начнете уже строить карьеру, у вас будет более сбалансированная жизнь, если вы не пойдете в Big Four или в любую другую компанию. Ничего против Big Four не имею, в любую другую компанию, где, скажем, такой очень тяжелый график. И вот любить себя и любить, так скажем, любить себя и уметь балансировать вот эти все другие колеса жизни, это очень простой навык. Это, наверное, такое одно из самых больших клише, которые вы в Америке услышите от других американцев, да, которые построят карьеру, они будут всегда говорить: ой, я выгорел первые годы и потом научился только строить баланс. А вот совет, который я хочу дать вам, это научитесь его строить, когда вы еще студенты. Не фокусируйтесь чисто на учебе. И это ведет к тому, что из-за того, что я вижу такую огромную поддержку финтека сейчас вообще в целом в Центральной Азии, в Казахстане особенно, и куча английских инвесторов, бизнес-ангелов и других разных инвесторов, даже венчурные фонды, да, и при разных компаниях. Это говорит о том, что у вас сейчас большое количество ресурсов, которых не было в мои годы, когда я был там на первом, на втором курсе. Говорит о том, что вы можете как-то свои идеи реализовать более быстро или более легко. В принципе, я ответил на вопрос Meirambek. What would you recommend to freshmen? Like, I think if you could give advice to yourself 2 years ago when you were deciding to choose this path, what would you say? I think I basically answered it just now. I would not spend too much time studying, or I would try to take a lot of opportunity to participate in projects that are different from my field. And I would try to meet people with different perspectives. I think that's actually very important. If you're always among people who have the same sort of exposure as you, with the same background or the same ideas, it's not how you're going to grow. If you want to grow, I think it's really important to be among people that are very different from you, that think differently, or that basically, you know, have a different mindset than you. Nazarbayev University is extremely diverse community, and it's tight. It's very tight knit. You will not see that anywhere in the world. I think I'm not going to exaggerate if I say that. That's the opportunity. It's diverse, but it's tight. You can always approach any other student. You can make friends with them, with professors, you can get resource for anything you want. And I think you should use that to your best opportunity, Meirambek. I think that's what I would tell you. Как изменились ваши взгляды на жизнь после выпуска, Марила спрашивает. Они изменились очень сильно, потому что когда вы в Назарбаев университете, вы в таком каком-то шарике, да, где вы защищены от всего, в таком комфортном дорме, с такими крутыми профессорами, вы не видите суровой жизни, когда вы в университете, когда вы на учебе. А когда вы выходите за пределы, вы понимаете, что ко всему этому вы в основном были не готовы, и вы просто очень сильно шокируетесь, и многие теряются, поэтому нужно в себе развить какой-то огромный стержень, который вам обязательно пригодится, чтобы бороться с системой, или не бороться, точнее, да, правильно, скажем, расставлять свои приоритеты и цели. Но взгляды изменились именно в таком плане. То есть я видел жизнь намного более розовых очках и более комфортной, чем она есть на самом деле. Тем более, что мне пришлось просто... Я закончил 27 мая graduation, кажется, 15 июня я сел на самолет в Бостон. Это был мой первый большой трип самостоятельный, и я никого не знал в Бостоне вообще. И мне нужно было первую ночь, вообще у меня не было даже общаги, и я никого не знал, и у меня не было долларов, было пару долларов. И я понял, вот началась жизнь, да, я вышел 2 недели назад из комфортабельного, ну, вот, так изменились мои взгляды. I asked, what does the admissions department of MA is looking, what skills of experiences? It is an asked of Paiva. It's a good question, but it's not easy to answer for two reasons. I think there are a lot of students who are going to listen to this talk that are not trying to get into Master of Finance and that are not trying to get into the US. I think they just want experience. So I think it's a little bit more private and individualistic. If I'll answer quickly, if you want to get into Master of Finance and business school and in the US, they'll look for qualities that I talked about. They will always ask you about your weaknesses and why they should, like they'll look at you and be like, okay, we looked at everything. You're a very outstanding student. You achieved a lot. You've been through a lot of difficulties. Why we should admit you? Tell me. And then a lot of students cannot answer that because they are not self-aware. If you are a really great individual with academic credentials, with a lot of recommendation letters, with great work experience, but you're not able to talk about why you, and that means you're not self-aware, you don't have a really good understanding of your weaknesses and why you are good, why you're a good fit. That's one thing. But then secondly, they'll ask why our school, and a lot of students will give admissions a very generic answer. They'll give, oh, it's the best school, it's the best reputation. Well, no, we know about all that, like, but tell us why the school, right? I've seen a lot of people, when I actually just got into Sloan, at that time, I think I was probably talking to maybe 10 different NU students every day for like a year. So I probably talked to over 100 in total. And I checked so many motivation letters, and not maybe one out of all of those had like, okay sort of answers to questions for admissions. And every time I was just saying, like, you're just not self-aware, or like this motivation letter is really generic. I just can't, they won't even invite you to a final interview with that. A lot of people thought that I'm like harsh or that I don't want to give a good advice, but it was just true. It was the sort of the motivational letters did not have direct answers, and they did not show self-awareness, and they were very generic. I think I would leave it at that. I think I took part in case championships for NU Case Club, and I think for CFA as well. Challenge, I already forgot, but they are very helpful. Please do definitely do participate in all the case championships you have. Okay, another advice here. Let's say you have a CFA research challenge. I think it was actually, that's what it was called, but it was some kind of valuation of a company. A lot of my friends or students who I went with to different classes just said, hey, I'm not going to participate. I was like, let's go. They'll know we have finals, we have this and that. We don't know how to value a company. I told them, okay, you don't know, but that's the goal, right? The goal is to learn there by doing. If you don't put yourself in a very uncomfortable situation, you are not going to learn. If you're going to be in a very comfortable in a very comfortable position, surrounded by people who are your familiar, you are not going to grow. You should always stretch yourself and put yourself out of your comfort zone. Again, that's cliche. I don't want to speak of cliches, but all I'm trying to say is take part in all of those case championships, and even any kind of, let's say, fintech competition, or come up with an idea how to do this and that. I saw a lot of those at NU, before the pandemic. I know they haven't probably restarted yet, just because you guys are just coming back. But when they do, just take part in all of them, and don't kill yourself. Like, don't strive to be number one. All you're trying to do is learn there, but also don't spend too much time on your exams. Your goal is to grasp the knowledge that you get at NU and get decent grades. Your goal is not to get the best grades. Yes, it's Nurila, it's very useful. Minor in math is minor. Oh, I should probably read these because you guys don't see them. Is minor in math useful for masters? Yes. And again, I assume you're asking about Master of Finance or Economics. It's very useful. It's not only about minors, just because math itself is a really good subject. It's a really great science. I love math. I was taking as many math courses as possible, and always with math majors. And you should challenge yourself into better than any best math major classmates that took part in all of those Republican Olympiads and stuff like that. I'm just kidding, but yes, definitely, it is helpful. Norai, what played a major role in getting you accepted to such a great into such great universities and programs? I should say I got into 10 plus programs. I probably applied, no, I'm probably lying here. I probably applied to like maybe 10 or 11, but I probably got into like 9. I already forgot. Oh, okay. I don't remember the exact number, but a lot of those were in the US, in the UK, and Europe, like a bit in Spain and France, the HEC school, heck, a few in Spain, i.e. Asada, basically a bunch of variety. What played a major role is, I think, my motivation letters and my ability to speak with the people who interview me. I think what they really look for, and again, that's mostly in the US, but they look for genuine, straightforward people who can talk very openly about their difficulties in life, what they think they're capable to do, and what they think their weaknesses are. If you're able to explain to admissions committee those kinds of things, like, hey, I'm self-aware, this is where I'm strong, this is where I'm weak, and here's what you need from me, and here's what you'll get from me. I literally said that, like, hey, I'm not good at this and that because I didn't have that background, but here's what I do, and here's what I think, and then here's what I think about markets right now, and what investors should be doing. Even if they don't ask you, just go on and talk. Try to kind of put that in the context of the question they ask. I think that's a really good skill. Absolutely all of my interviews went well, and they were always face to face. I don't know how they do it these days. It was always over Skype then. But I think that was sort of the qualities that they look at. And again, if anybody has any follow-up questions, just feel free to ping me anywhere on Instagram. I mostly use LinkedIn, probably 80% of my days these days. On Instagram, I just post something general if I want to reach people. Sometimes other social networks, but mostly those two. Maybe last, were you accepted to other universities? I basically answered that. Nora, could you also talk about networking? So networking, it's a little bit difficult for you to do it in Kazakhstan because there's no real culture of networking. If you're not, if the people who you should be seeking to connect with, if they didn't study in the US, they don't have that culture. But if they did study in the US and they were part of the industry there, they will have a culture of networking. What you should know about that is, so when I went to MIT Sloan, all it was about every night was meeting companies. The companies come from Wall Street. Like, let's say JP Morgan came like at 8 p.m. on a night when I had like 2 finals. So you go to that office, you talk to their senior, like global head of recruiting and you say, hey, I'm Meirambek, I'm from Kazakhstan. I love this and this about JP Morgan. I talked to alumni that work in this and that department. Do you know if they're looking for anybody? Can you tell me about recruiting process? And then they'll really value that and they'll remember you. You won't believe it, but they probably talk to hundreds of people every day, but they will remember you if you stand out. It's not like you shouldn't think that people forget you. People really, remember what you told them during networking events. And I think another thing about networking is that you shouldn't do it. Like networking is always about sort of looking for jobs or looking for advice, but you should try to make friends with them. You should try to be genuine, stay friends, and maybe ask them what kind of things they need help with when time goes by. And it's important to stay in touch with people. Before pandemic, all networking happened in person. For the past 2 years, it's always via LinkedIn. If you just get a premium subscription, you reach out to alumni, it's always gonna, happen. And I know that our alumni are very responsive, actually. If you can talk to anybody, we have a lot of people at McKinsey right now, and definitely Big Four, a lot of people in national companies. So I think you just have a really good chance of, understanding the industry in Kazakhstan. It's very small, and you basically know everybody after working for a few years. In the US, it's big, but it's still small. Like it's very easy for me to get a contact in any firm, like in, let's say, one day or something. So you think that the whole Wall Street is big, but it's really not. How did you embrace risk taking? How did you learn to embrace? I think I just grew up to be a risk taker, and I understand what you're talking about, Meirambek. Basically, like dropping everything and going to the US, right, and head on without knowing anything about industry. I think that was a big risk, and it was not easy to take it, especially when all of my families are here and no friends there. But I would say that you like кто не рискует, тот не пьет шампанское, да, клише, это все говорят здесь. But take measured risk. Don't take every risk, take measured risk. And what I mean by measured is when you can, so what is a risk, right? It's something you can get rewarded with, or something, if you get on the wrong side of the risk, it will just hit you and you will just end up, losing everything. So when you have let's say a cushion and a backup plan B and plan C, you can always take that risk. But it's actually a good question, because I think that's another quality any admissions committee are looking for. They want a person who is brave. They want somebody who is willing to step up, because any company is looking for brave and people who are self-starters. Well, was there a time when you messed up and felt like it failed? A lot of times. I'm not a role model, and nobody is, and I don't want to like boast or talk about positive sides only. I'm happy to. I think we should always talk about negative sides. I failed a lot of interviews, and when I was at MIT Sloan, I was very challenged by the program and curriculum. I think it was just not easy to combine everything and to recruit at the same time and look for kind of companies. So definitely I failed a lot of times there. How did you bounce back? I think it's all about, understanding what your plan is, what's your best option, and how to proceed in the best manner so that you don't lose again, right? So I think bouncing back is about learning good lessons and then reprioritizing things. So if you do prioritize, I think that's what's going to help a lot. Yes, my contacts, Ireland will send them out. And you can, I think we're going to also tag my Instagram and that post so that it's easy. And I think just generally speaking, happy to sort of talk about anything you guys want in any other social network. Researcher in economic sphere. Well, I'm not a researcher, right? I'm a financier on Wall Street, so that's different than yet. But what is cool about economics in general, or researching in economics, is that you can, first of all, comprehend a lot of world events through an economic lens. I think that's a really great advantage. People who are in the industry are not, like, a lot of people who are in the finance industry are not really economists. We do have economists who are in the industry, or the other way around, but I think having that lens of you know, the economics, the lens that an economics researcher can, you know, provide and look through, I think it's very useful. And I mean, you're learning so many techniques, and you're learning about the world and the politics in a manner that nobody does. So that's definitely an advantage. Yes, Miroed, were there ever a role you applied for and landed, but weren't 100% qualified to do? How did you proceed? Yes, I had a lot of those, but just in the interest of time, maybe I'll tell you how people should proceed if they feel that they're not qualified. One, you can accept, and you can tell the manager that I'll accept, but I'll need to learn about this and that. But I'm happy to learn because I love, you know, the team that you described, the work that you do. So I'll be happy to take on that challenge and learn all of those things. It'll take some time to learn, but I will be able to provide to provide as much output as you can expect from the best employee. I think that's the best thing to proceed. You can always reject, but that means you're not brave, right? It just means you will not be able to learn, and you just don't believe in, you know, skill set. That's not the best way. The best way is, and honestly, the role I was applying for had a lot of duties that I was not familiar with at all. I learned them on the go. A lot of things that you will do in your role when you start are going to be new to you, and nobody expects you to know them. So just being brave and being very self-conscious, and always raising your hand and saying, hey, I don't understand, or I don't know how to do this, or can you teach me? Where can I go for the sources? I want to learn. And then, you know, you will learn and you will be the best. So I think people should always accept positions if they were offered them, and they think that it's a good fit and they like everything about it.
So I have an additional question. You told about telling your weaknesses. So I'm really interested in, you know, being genuine, as you said, but how to tell your weakness without sounding weak? Maybe that's a question when applying to master's degree.
I think that's a really great question, and that's probably one of the toughest that not a lot of applicants answer. You will hear that not only in your master's degree, but also when you work. The one thing that I do want to explain, RLM, is that you should always, like, at least once a month, think about the stuff you learned this month, the stuff you were trying to achieve but you didn't, and then the stuff that you want to achieve next month or like next year, right? And then that way you will understand where you're weak and where you aren't. And, you know, if the weakness was that you didn't plan well, or the weakness was that, let's say, you were just too busy with something that you shouldn't have been, just say that. I don't think it's bad to show that you're weak in something. It's good. It's always good to show yourself aware. Maybe you just have to pick a weakness that doesn't make you look too bad for the interview. Let's say if the role requires good planning, but you're not good at it, just don't pick that weakness. Of course, you have that and you know about it, but like, don't talk about it too much. And you will learn how to plan when you get that job.
Okay, this was very much needed. Thank you. So if you have additional questions, feel free to ask, and maybe you can raise your hands. So this recording will be uploaded in our YouTube channel, also in our Fintalks and Instagram. You can find the link. So feel free to ask questions.
Yeah, and like I said, let's tag me, I think my Instagram, I think that's going to be the best way. And you guys, if anybody prefers to reach out via LinkedIn, just do that. And if no questions right now, then happy to stay in touch with everybody. And I'll be in Astana and Almaty. So if anybody's in Almaty or in Astana and you want to meet or have a call, just ping me.
Okay, I'm sharing your contact, especially LinkedIn contact in the chat. So, okay, we can reach out to our alumni. Okay, Meirambek, you can ask the question.
Yep, thank you so much. I have one more question regarding weakness.
Sure.
So how can we evaluate a weakness? For example, it's a weakness that I'm considering can be strength for someone. And should I take into consideration of others' thought? For example, should I contact my PA, for example? Should I inquire about my weakness from other people? Or should I be self-aware and the weakness and stress that I'm thinking that this is really my weakness? Should I provide this information?
I think it's the latter. I think asking others about where you're weak is just a little bit misleading. Nobody knows you better than you do. But yeah, so you can always asking for feedback is actually another quality any good school is looking for, and any good employer asking will look for. One of the things I ask in the interview is actually, how do you receive feedback? Do you like being criticized? Do you like I also ask, how did you learn that you're weak in that? Or how did you find out that you need to develop this quality or that quality? Like, did you just think about it? Did you ask somebody? And that actually tells you about how this person tries to develop himself, right? What does he pay attention to? So I think it makes sense to ask for feedback, but I think identifying your weakness and strength, that's for you to do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. This was very much useful. And I don't question to ask an interviewer. So I think he asks about when the interview ends, the interviewer often asks question, what questions do you have? And I think Aiden is asking about that. Yes.
I think it depends on, that's very specific to the interview. So it depends on what they touched upon. So if they touched upon something, let's say they said, oh, the team is, let's say it's 4 people and it's only in Astana, then you just have to ask, is there a goal to expand this team, or how is it going to expand and why and when? So basically just follow up on something that the interviewer mentioned during. If they didn't mention at all and it was completely silent, just ask, hey, what do you like about this company? And if you're interviewing with school, what I did with admissions, I just asked them hey, what do you like best about Sloan? Or what do you like best about, you've been an admissions committee here and you've seen so many candidates. I said, okay, what makes an outstanding candidate? Can you tell me? They actually love sharing those things. Maybe people in Kazakhstan are a bit different and they'll just say, oh, we don't share. But in the US, just people really love open-minded people. I saw something else here pop up. Let's see, how important is data analytics for your job, from Danya, and what tools do you mostly use for it? It's difficult to say how it's important because it's basically integral to any financial analysis. It depends on what type of data analytics you're talking about. If we're just only looking at, let's say, equity markets and what the volatility there, we're trying to analyze the impact on our portfolios, the funds or the ETFs or anything, right? We do some basic, regression analysis. However, I just want to say and what tools. I mostly use Python. My teammates use R. Sometimes, I don't know, other people will use MATLAB. So it's really not, the language is pretty not not incredibly important. And then what I want to say is that I think everybody should be able to use those tools these days. I think it should be part of any curriculum now. It just depends on how you use them and what field you go to. Like I said, like if you're a quantitative risk manager, you'll probably have more quant models, you know, both with machine learning and any other techniques. So it just depends on the role. But for me, it's mostly just analyzing our portfolios and maybe doing some kind of simulations and the effect on the portfolios from different types of environments.
Yes, Meirambek, you can ask.
Okay, I have one more question, probably the last question. It is regarding interview. I'm a third-year student, and also since it is like master's degrees approaching, I'm just spoken with many alumni, and sometimes some people advise me like to show yourself as a perfect candidate during the interview, like as others say, fake it until you make it. In a while, other people will suggest you just to show yourself, like honest yourself. And my question, like, what is the limit of honesty, especially during the interview?
So I can't speak. I think you'd better ask the person who told you to be to show you the perfect self. But I think what they mean is focus on the positives, and I think that's fair. I would definitely say, you know, focus on the positives and show your best, like the best side. But like I said, be self-aware. If nobody's ideal, and if you fake it and, you know, present yourself as the best, or oh, I don't have any weakness, I never failed, that's a immediate rejection. At least for me, if a candidate would just say like something like that they never failed, that they can't remember how they struggled and they bounced back, it's an immediate rejection, even if they had like a 4.0 GPA, I don't know, investment banking internship, 3 research projects, and if they answer like that, that's a complete throw off. So definitely focus on, don't fake it, never. Always focus on the positives, but just be self-aware and be prepared if they ask you about the negative side. I would say, you know, be honest, be genuine. Yeah.
Okay, Meirambek, this was a very great question. So guys, if you have no more questions, we can finish the session. And as I told, this recording will be available anywhere in our social media. Thank you for our guests for kindly accepting our invitation and for your genuine responses. This was very useful for our students, and I hope that they learned something, because I did. And thank you very much. It was great seeing you, and hopefully we'll meet
Sure.
again.
Always happy to do this at Ellen.
Yes.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye. So